Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back from the ad break. You are still watching Prime Life. Now, tonight we are joined by Thaakir Dawood, who is a sports journalist, to commemorate World Sports Journalist Day, which is established by the International Sports Press Association in 1994. Now, this day celebrates, the crucial role of sports journalists in the world of athletics. Now, tonight, Thaakir is going to be sharing with us his experiences and his insights in the field and how sports journalism continues to shape the world of sports and beyond. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Prime Live.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for having me. Always a
Thank
pleasure
you.
being here.
Welcome back. It's been a while since you've joined us on INX Prime. So thank you so much for joining us. Tell us about your journey as a sports journalist. Where did it all start?
That's a tricky question. There's a long answer and there's a short answer. So to keep it as compressed as possible, it started in varsity when I used to attend sports games, and I found that there just wasn't many people reporting on smaller games such as like your under 19s, under 21s, other than first team sports. And that's when I then started literally writing and publishing on Facebook. And from there, we just grew and grew, and alhamdulillah, we are where we are today.
Oh, nice. That's where your passion for it actually started. That's interesting. Are you a sports person? Are you very athletic?
I am indeed.
Is it?
I'm a sports person, but I'm not athletic. That's why I'm not on the field and behind the scenes.
So you're not the active person.
Not as active as a professional.
Okay, okay. All right. So now World Sports Journalism Day celebrates the work of sports journalists globally. What do you think makes sports journalism unique from the normal, journalism that we know of?
Look, I think it's the fact that there's so many stories to tell. There's the stories on the field and off the field. There's what's happening behind the scenes. There's stories within stories. And that's the nice thing, because you could speak about a match report, or you could speak about a profile piece, which is about a player, or you can speak about their diets, or their recovery routine, or how faith interlinks into everything that they do. And that's where you see what brings many players peace. So that's the nice part about sports journalism. There's so many facets to it that brings it all together.
That's beautiful. That means there's a lot to write about and there's a lot to talk about. Now, let's speak about the fact that we are now in a digital era. And for a lot of journalists, people who write, people in the media industry as a whole are finding it difficult because it feels like someone has taken over their job. Now, do you think, first of all, AI can replace journalists? If yes or if no, just answer that question. Do you think it can replace journalists as a whole?
I don't think so. Never. You sitting there, if there had to be a bot asking me this question,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have gotten the same response.
Okay. But in terms of writing, has it affected what you do?
Look, the thing that makes sports what it is the fact that it's passion. It's passion driven and it's heartfelt. And that comes through in writing. And AI can never replace emotion of someone. So I think that's the nice part about it. Journalists are always going to be writing straight from their heart, whereas AI wouldn't necessarily give you those benefits. It could maybe fix your grammar and spelling. Yes, there's a place for AI in the journalism space, but not necessarily to take over writing.
And in terms of especially sports journalism, I like that you mentioned that there's a lot to write about. So some sports journalists will write about issues about religion, racism that happens also within, the sports field. What do you, or what's your opinion of the journalists that write on such sensitive issues?
Look, I think that's what makes journalism what it is. Um, you have to be objective to everything that comes up. And if it wasn't for these stories, then there wouldn't be a place in the papers for it. So for me, I think that it's right. And for many of my followers on social media, and they know that I followed that route where I wouldn't necessarily do match reports. I do profile pieces. I'd want to find out how faith interlinks with players, making them the players that they are. And for me, it was always the story behind the athlete and not necessarily the athlete or what's happening on the field. So for me, that's what got me into the journalism space. So I think for many people out there as well, if you don't tell these stories, not many people will know about it and realize there's actually a person behind the player that you see on the pitch.
And in terms of challenges, let's talk about your journey as a whole. What is the most challenging thing about the job that you do?
Look, I think it's time management.
Time.
If you choose sports journalism, you need to realize that other people's entertainment is your work. So when they're relaxing behind a braai, watching the game, this is you actually where you have to put in the hard yards and actually do the work. So You sacrifice a lot of time away from friends, away from family, in order to make sure that you can actually live your passion and make sure that your passion can put food on the table for you. So it's a lot of long hours, time away from home, because there's always games that are out of your province or city where you're staying at. So it's all of those elements that you kind of only adjust or balance at a later stage in your career. But while you're still finding your feet, it's very, very difficult.
And I'm going to speak about the rewarding part of it also. What makes you love what you do?
I think the fact that you can wake up every day and you know that it's not going to be the same as yesterday. That's the amazing part about it, because journalism and sports is always changing. So the stories that you're chasing are always changing as well. And that's the nice part about it, that always keeps me like fresh and on my toes, because I don't think that I'd be cut out to do the same thing every single day.
And in terms of, let's speak about the maybe trends that are coming up within the journalism industry. What are you foreseeing, given the fact that we've spoken about the digital AI taking over? At the end of the day, even though it cannot replace human beings, but it does impact the way the industry operates. How do you foresee journalism or the world of journalism growing or changing in the near future?
Look, I see it changing for the better. I see it where journalists are going to become multi-skilled to the point where they can now start doing video, audio, and photographic journalism at the same time. Because you live in a day and age where, in order for me to write a piece, it would take me 10 minutes. But to record what we're currently talking about and put it out on TikTok before the journalist that wrote it, and that your story will get clout, it goes much more, it goes viral quicker. So I think it's all those things that we need to look at, and how journalists need to adapt to different forms of journalism in order to make themselves a complete product that can benefit the media industry.
And now let's talk about what does a typical day look like for you as a journalist? Waking up in the morning, how does it all add up to a story? How do you get there?
It actually starts the day before. So it's looking at trends and what's currently happening in the industry and what can be expected. And I'll then start my day off with doing the stories that I know is done, where it's basically just putting the meat and potatoes on it and publishing. And then it's then going out there to find alternate stories. So whether it's breaking news, whether it's a story that's still going to be coming out, or whether I'm just basically following up on an athlete's profile piece and interviewing the athlete, getting the behind the scenes stories from the athlete to put the complete story together. So for me, it's a lot of work that's been done before the time, and when we actually go out there to do a story, it's just putting the final pieces of that puzzle together in order to publish.
And let's talk about people, anyone that's probably watching right now that wants to get into the industry. What advice would you give to them?
Look, I think journalism and sports journalism and the media industry for that matter has changed so much that the power is in your own hands. Literally your mobile phone. You don't have to have the perfect phone, you don't have to have the perfect camera or the perfect tools to write the story, but you've got a notepad on your phone, you've got a camera, and you've got a voice recorder. And by having these tools, you can now curate and script whatever story, whatever narrative that you want, and you can publish it. Because there's so many journalists these days that use the platforms such as social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, to basically use that as their publishing house and their publishing platform. So gone are the days where people feel like they need a media house. You've got so many individual and independent journalists now that can publish on their own platforms, and that's what they become credible for. So I think that if you want to get started, and you'll grow along the way. You never ever start as a perfect product. You grow towards it. So I think that's what many people need to take into consideration.
No, most definitely. And what inspires you to continue doing what you do, especially in the ever-evolving world of sports?
I think for me, I'm blessed to have an opportunity to do what I do and tell stories of other people, because you always find that in the sports fraternity, and I take it from myself, for example, being Muslim in the sports fraternity, you're kind of a minority. So for me, having the platform and the opportunity to tell stories of fellow Muslim athletes in the fraternity, it somehow brings warmth to my heart, because you're now getting to give the minorities a platform that they wouldn't necessarily be given on any other stage. And for me, it's finding those stories behind the scenes and kind of what makes athletes stick in order for them to be the best player in the world.
Mm. That's so beautiful. And you just mentioned that obviously you're a minority in what you're doing. Do you believe that we've got enough sports journalists in South Africa? Is there any room for growth?
I don't think there's ever enough sports journalists
Mm.
because the more sports journalists there are, the more narratives there are and different ways of telling stories
Mm.
there will be. So for me, I think the more the merrier, because that will just make you see things from a different light because everybody has a different perspective on things.
Mm. Before we let you go, Thaakir, is there anything that you'd like to say? Any final words to commemorate this day of, Sports Journalist Day?
Look, I think journalism is it's one of the fraternities where it's unforgiving and it's a thankless job.
Mm.
So you as a sports journalist need to know that whatever you're doing, um, there's a bigger reason and purpose behind you doing what you're doing,
Mm.
and you just have to keep going.
Mm. Jazakallah so much for joining us, and we hope that we will be hosting you again soon. Don't disappear for too long. Jazakallah for your time. Our viewers at home, that was Thaakir Dawood, who is a sports journalist, and we were just commemorating the beautiful day of World Sports Journalist Day, and he just was sharing to us his journey as a journalist, but most importantly, just reminding us on the important, or the importance the importance of the sports journalists, and also how diverse the industry actually is. I hope this left you very inspired, well informed, and even more motivated for you to pursue maybe a career in sports journalism. But without wasting any time, let's go to a break. We will see you right after this. Stay tuned.